Hello, my name is Thomas Hagland and I am the Acting Technical Director of Typecraft. Together we're going to look at the Typecraft system. I'm going to show you briefly how Typecraft is structured as a web service before we dig into some of the data Typecraft contains and try to visualize it in an interesting way. So what is Typecraft? Primarily it's a database, a repository or a data bank, if you will, of annotated text. Access to the Typecraft database is exposed through two systems, the Typecraft Media Wiki and the Typecraft web applications. The Media Wiki contains a number of interesting articles, as well as overview of some of the database content. It also exposes a search interface, allowing you to search the database for any publicly available data. The web applications encompasses primarily the editor and the importer. The first one lets you write and annotate your own texts, while the second one lets you import others' texts into the database. Typecraft stores its data in a fixed hierarchical manner, with the autonomous entity text on the top. A text is built up of one or more phrases, an entity which you may view as a small collection of sentences. Furthermore, a phrase comprises one or more words, which finally is built up of the smallest building block of Typecraft, the morpheme. Typecraft supports two levels of annotating text, word level and morpheme level. The former enables what is commonly known as part-of-speech tagging. You might know it as grouping words into word classes, such as nouns, verbs, and so on. The latter enables gloss tagging. You might know this as determining what is the subject, object, etc. of the sentence. Okay, so that was the express introduction to Typecraft. Now, before we go our separate ways, let's have a look at some of the data stored and exposed in Typecraft. As mentioned, Typecraft contains roughly 300,000 phrases spread across roughly 2,150 texts. This is across about 150 languages. Now let's take this data and look at its geographic distribution. As you can see, the leader, quite naturally as Typecraft's origins is from Norway, is Norwegian. Following closely is Ghana. Ghana is also the country with the most languages represented in the Typecraft database, with 28 different languages having at least one text. Following Ghana is Germany and then Uganda. And then we have the United Kingdom, China, and India. Now, while this visualization is interesting enough, let's take this data out into the world map. In this graphic, the color darkness represents text abundancy. We see that while roughly 60% of all text come from our four top countries, geographically we have covered large portions of the world in Typecraft. Now, let's switch out our third dimension from color intensity to bubble size. It is obvious from this graphic that both country density and text density is largest close to the GMT longitude. Now, this was of course just text. What happens if we change our focus to phrases? Wow, hello Germany. As is clear, German text in our database holds a lot of phrases per text. This is because large portions of our German is from large corpora, which contains many phrases per text. The same goes for Mandarin Chinese. So okay, let's filter out these two countries to get an overview of the rest. The picture is not too unlike the text world map. We see though that Uganda jumps up a bit and Norway and Ghana are somewhat sparser on the phrase front. Switching focus to words, we see that the Ghanaian languages are denser on words than the Ugandan languages. Notably, this might just be a nature of the specific data stored as much as a language feature. Going further down to morphemes, we see that Uganda again outcombats Norway and Ghana. This seems to suggest that Ugandan languages generally are better annotated on a morphosyntactic level. However, it might also stem from the fact that compared to the Ghanaian languages, the Ugandan languages we have in Typecraft are agglutinating languages, and thus contain more morphemes. Finally, we're going to look at two interesting pieces of data. The first is what I call the word abundancy bubbles, which is an overview of the most common words in the database. Unsurprisingly, most of the words are German or Chinese, but at the very top we find exclusively punctuation. This seems to suggest that, at least in German, many forms of punctuation is more common than any word, and also that the frequency of any word is less than one per sentence, as assuming each sentence is correctly punctuated implies there is at least one full stop punctuation. The second piece of data is a bar chart over the most common part of speech tags. You might deduce what some of them means. At the top, we see that out of the 5 million words in the database, about 1 million of them are nouns. Following is about 550,000 punctuations and 460,000 verbs. Using the same logic as before, we can deduce that for each sentence and thus each punctuation, there is roughly one verb and two nouns. Now, note that Typecraft supports 96 part-of-speech tags in total, and this is a selected subset of the entire data, with only the 19 top results. Okay, that's it. We're through. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to learn more about Typecraft or just get started, I suggest you visit typecraft.org and request an account there. We hope to see you. Thanks for watching.